There's been a great deal of media coverage lately about a horrific truck accident that happened in Florida that took the lives of three innocent motorists. The news has covered this crash pretty extensively, but I want to look at it through the eyes of an attorney. I'm Bob Byrne. I'm an attorney who is board certified in handling truck accident cases. I want to take a look at what happened and then look at some of the laws and regulations. And I also want to take a look at what should have happened instead, which would have prevented this crash and hopefully prevent something like this from happening again. So let's jump right in. So the crash occurred on Florida's turnpike. This is a 4-lane road with 2 lanes going northbound, 2 lanes going southbound. The 4 lanes are separated by a median with a guardrail between them. Every so often on this road, there will be a break in the guardrail where it's possible to do a U-turn. These types of breaks in the median are intended for emergency vehicles. They're not meant for regular drivers on the road. And there's several reasons for that. As you can see, these spaces are narrow and someone would need to come to a controlled stop essentially to be able to pull into that area and then come to another stop. And then from that stop, they're going to need to pull into oncoming traffic and get up to speed of up to 70 miles an hour as quickly as they possibly can. So this is incredibly dangerous for any motorist to make a U-turn on a busy highway like this, because to slow down is going to endanger motorists, and then to have to try to speed back up is also going to endanger motorists. You know, the speed limit along this road is 70 miles per hour, but most motorists know that traffic oftentimes even exceeds what is posted. So not only must regular motorists in their cars and their trucks and their minivans avoid making a U-turn on these roads, but it's certainly the case that a full-length tractor trailer should never try to make a U-turn on one of these roads. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened in this crash. According to news reports, this truck driver drove so far off of the shoulder of the highway that he was into the dirt in order to make this turn. And you can see that given how narrow this entry is through the median, a driver has to make one of 2 turns. He can either make a button hook turn or a jug handle turn. To be able to go through this narrow of an entry with this long of a truck, someone has to do a jug handle turn, which means they have to go as far to the right as they can and then cut all the way across traffic. And then they're going to have to cut all the way across oncoming traffic from the other direction, probably again go off the road, and then be able to try to steer the vehicle so that they could head in the opposite direction. So it's incredibly dangerous, and it's something that should never be attempted by a passenger vehicle, much less a tractor trailer. Video footage from the crash shows that the tractor of the tractor trailer was entering into the median when the driver looked behind him and saw an incoming vehicle, which was a minivan, crash into the trailer. And this resulted in the death of 3 occupants of the minivan. I've done another video that talks about the dangers of underride crashes. And an underride crash is when a passenger vehicle hits a trailer broadside and it essentially shoots underneath the trailer. And by doing so, it bypasses so much of the safety mechanisms that exist for a passenger car. All of that force goes into the windshield and will oftentimes hit passengers right in the face, right in the head, the upper torso, and will kill them instantly. So needless to say, when a trailer is blocking lanes of travel, an underride crash can occur, and it can be vicious and violent. Now, there's various traffic laws that were violated with regards to this particular crash, and there's things that could have been done, of course, to prevent it. And so first and foremost, a driver is required to plan their route. Before they ever leave with the load that they're set to deliver, They need to plan their route and figure out exactly where they're going to go, what roads they're going to take. They need to make sure that the roads that they're going to use are appropriate for their vehicle. A driver has to make sure that they follow the route that they've either selected or has been selected for them. Mistakes can happen. And when they do, and if a driver somehow misses their turn, the safest thing to do and the most appropriate thing to do is to go to a place where they can turn around safely. And that is almost never done with a U-turn, especially what's called an uncontrolled U-turn, where there's not people out with flags, people directing, people stopping oncoming traffic, things like that. That should never happen on a highway. Also, a truck driver needs to be cognizant of how massive their vehicle is. And if they're making this type of maneuver, especially on a highway, they know that they have to be very precise and they need to drive very, very slowly. And so when you have a situation where a driver's making this maneuver, they know that their trailer is going to be blocking lanes of travel for several seconds while the vehicle has to slow down, has to make the turn, and then has to get back up to speed once it enters the opposite lane of travel. And that's something that just isn't a luxury that's available when you're on a highway and vehicles are going 70 miles per hour or faster. And so that's one of the reasons why U-turns are only permitted when it's safe to do it, and it should never be permitted by a tractor trailer on a highway. I think some people are going to say, hey, come on, what's the big deal? These trucks and these trailers are so big, you can see them trying to make this turn from miles away. And when that happens, and if you're seeing it, just slow down, just stop. Everyone can stop, let them do their thing. Sure, it's annoying. It's going to be problematic in that respect, but it shouldn't be all that dangerous. And when you're thinking along that line, you're like, wait a second, why didn't this minivan driver do something to avoid this collision? I want to take a look a little bit at what the law says about the physics of these types of crashes. And I want to show, based on the physics that the law follows, there's really no way that this minivan driver could have avoided this collision. So to explain, the law recognizes in states like here in Virginia, we have a table of time, speed, and distance. And you can see that it calculates that if a vehicle is traveling a certain speed, it's going to be covering a certain number of feet per second. So a vehicle traveling at 70 miles per hour is going to be traveling 102 feet per second. And for that vehicle to go from 70 miles per hour to a complete stop, it's going to take 233 feet. So that's not as much as a football field, but it's a majority of a football field. But of course, we all know that when you see something, a danger or some sort of thing happen that you need to react to, there is reaction time that has to occur. We aren't in a position where we can immediately react to something the very second that we see it. That's not how our brains work. And so the law recognizes that there is reaction time that has to be built in to that stopping distance. And the law says that you roughly have 1.5 seconds of reaction time between the time that you see this danger and the time that you're able to hit the brakes. So if a driver's going 70 miles per hour, that means that they're going 102 feet per second. There's going to be another 1.5 seconds, so that's approximately another 150 feet built in for the reaction time. Then there's going to be the stopping distance once the brakes are applied. So altogether, that car is going 387 feet from the time that it first sees the danger until the time it's able to come to a complete stop. So that is more than a football field. So that means for this minivan to be able to stop from the time that it realizes that this truck is about to block off the lanes of travel, they're going to need about 130 yards or almost 390 feet of time to basically react to it, to hit the brakes, and to come to a complete stop. Now, if you look at the video, you can see in the corner of the video that the driver of the minivan can be seen maybe 100, 150 feet away. So right there, the driver is already in that zone of danger where they're not going to be able to come to a complete stop. So if they see this truck slowing down and then suddenly darting across traffic, they're not going to be able to react in time. They're probably not going to be able to swerve around it. And that means that they're going to crash into the side of the trailer. And again, now we're dealing with an underride situation. A minivan's going to be higher than a sedan, but it's still, that type of a crash is going to bypass a lot of the technology that exists in the minivan to dissipate the forces from a crash. A lot of that force is going to go directly into the occupants of that vehicle. Because it's essentially an underride, it would have been safer for these people if they crashed into the side of a stone wall or a brick wall, because then they would at least get the benefits of their seatbelts, the airbags, the crumple technology that existed in their vehicle. So in sum, this was a completely preventable crash. It never should have happened. The driver should have mapped out the route beforehand. And once he realized that he missed his turn, he should have taken the safe route, go up to the next exit, turn around, and come back without endangering anyone. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't yet, I hope that you would consider subscribing and liking this video. If you have any questions, want to talk about a particular case, please reach out. I'd be more than happy to see if I can point you in the right direction. Thanks again, and please stay tuned for more videos.